Metro. We've declared a first alert weather day for this Saturday as another Arctic blast makes its way to the state. We're on your side with how long the latest cold snap plans on sticking around.
And we talk with experts on the safest way to possibly protect your pipes, even when the temperature starts to warm up.
Yeah, some good advice there. Plus, we have an update to the drought monitor and if previous rain events are helping to ease the drought.
WBRC Fox 6 News. First Alert Weather Extra starts now.
Well, I know some of you out there are probably thinking, you know, every time I flip on Fox 6, it seems like that temperature gets lower for the weekend. Yeah, it looks cold out there for Saturday.
I will give you all a little hint, though. I was just putting together beyond the 7-day, and I'm not seeing a lot of cold air in the forecast.
Next week did look pretty nice. I think there was a day with 60s for a daytime high.
Yeah, 67 next Thursday.
Yeah.
So,
of course, everyone's always like, wait, does that mean severe weather? Well, we're not convinced of that yet, but we're going to be watching things.
Yes, we are certainly going to be watching it. Of course, the next big thing tonight, we've got some rain moving in, and we do have another first alert weather day for those frigid temperatures coming up for this weekend. I want to show you, starting out, some pictures I got in from Ethelsville. This is in Pickens County. I know we've been talking a lot about parts of Marion counties and areas to the north, but Blake Hill sharing this with me on my Facebook page, and you can see there's still quite a bit of ice. This was earlier today, of course, but there on the roadways. This was actually midday, and you can see a lot of ice there. So watch out tonight. There's still a concern as those temperatures fall that we could see some more patchy black ice early tomorrow morning, especially for these northern and northwest areas, because temperatures right now we're above freezing, so that we have rain falling, but any leftover, not just moisture from tonight, but we still have some ice still out there from earlier in the week. Some of those areas could refreeze, so be extra cautious tomorrow morning. By 6 a.m., the freezing line is going to start to drop into our north and northwest areas, but then that freezing line during the day is going to start moving north slightly there during the day tomorrow. But the really cold air, it's on the way. It's coming tomorrow night, tomorrow evening. You'll start to notice it. And yes, the gateway to the north is wide open again, and that Arctic air spilling in across the country, very cold, dense air, and it's going to pour into Alabama tomorrow night and into the day on Saturday. It looks like those low temperatures down into the teens, as low as around 14 degrees, highs only in the 20s on Saturday. So another deep freeze is on the way. But the wet weather has really expanded in coverage across the state. This is light rainfall at the moment. Again, temperatures are well above freezing, as you can see. 48 in Tuscaloosa, 47 in Birmingham, 48 in Anniston. To the north, Gadsden 46. We're seeing 40 plus in Blount County here around Aniana, Coleman 39, and over towards Hamilton and Haleyville, we are also well above freezing. So the showers will be around. Right now it's just off and on rain, enough to keep those roadways wet out there, so be careful driving this evening. A lot of wet, slippery roads. Give yourself plenty of extra drive time. You can see around Walker County, just some pick locations here, but a lot of this shower activity now starting to spread in to East Alabama, so expect that rain to increase, and this should start to taper off just past midnight tonight. So there will be an extended period when the rain ends before we really see those freezing temperatures early tomorrow morning. But for a lot of us, as we start the day, we're just above freezing for our Friday, but by the afternoon we're also above freezing. It's a cold day, highs only in the 30s. We'll see some sunshine coming back, but there could be a few snow flurries later in the day as that frigid air starts to spill into the state. It's going to be windy, cold tomorrow night, wind chills down into the single digits. So some more frigid weather, but we will be talking about that milder weather and the chances for rain coming up.
Even though most schools in the Birmingham Metro opened back up today, schools to the north in places like Coleman and Walker counties are still closed. State troopers say some roads in those areas were just still too dangerous today, especially since temperatures dropped below freezing again last night. Troopers continue to monitor the area, but as of right now, there was no clear timeline on when roads will reopen.
It looks like the snow and ice is melting. It is on top, but at the bottom is still ice. So you have the mixture of water and the ice, and making it very unsafe.
Officials also urged people in Jasper to wait until the ice had time to melt before getting out and about. And this just in from Alabama State Troopers. They continue to advise you to avoid non-essential travel and beware of increased travel impacts overnight. They are also looking ahead to possible travel impacts persisting through the weekend. State Troopers also telling us they've responded to dozens of calls from drivers running into trouble on the roads, saying some places still have icy spots, especially on less traveled county roads that are often times covered in the shade. Troopers are still pleading drivers to please be careful. They say if you go out on an icy road and run into issues, they may not be able to get you help.
Four-wheel drives, all-wheel drive cars. So even if you're from up north and you go, hey, I can drive in the snow, it's not the same snow in Alabama that we have up north. It's typically ice, and nothing goes good on ice, of course. But when you throw ice into the mix of, us being on the side of the road, that makes it even more dangerous for us because, it only takes a split second for a car or tractor trailer to start sliding and, they're into our scene that we're working.
Icy conditions are still prevalent not just in Coleman and Walker counties, but also Winston, Marion, Fayette, and Hale counties. Some major thoroughfares are still impacted, so be sure to check on local conditions before traveling on the roads in those areas. Blount County officials say most roads there are passable, but they're asking you to watch out for some icy patches. And in Coleman, AlDOT saying that crews are still working to make the roads safer to drive on. This comes after trying to have one plowed lane on most of the major routes in the city and dealing with the freezing and refreezing of ice as temperatures continue to plummet.
Dealing with bursting pipes is never a laughing matter. Often, we only truly appreciate the value of water when we find ourselves without it. As freezing temperatures loom and more chill is on the way, Zoom Drain has tips on safeguarding your pipes from the harsh cold.
Of course, like you've always been told, leave your water running. It's a good idea to leave it, a little bit more than just a drip when it gets down to in the teens. Also pipe insulation. Most of the big box stores now have pipe insulation right there at the entrance. So any kind of insulation that you can do whatsoever is great. And just keep the air and wind off of the pipes as best as possible.
And if your pipes have burst, here's what Harper says you can do in the meantime.
Find their water meter. It's usually on behind the curb of their house, in front of their house. It's usually a rectangle box. If they can find that, there is a water shutoff in there that they can use a pair of pliers or, if they have a water key, it would be ideal. But that's going to be your best bet is just to cut water off to the entire house.
Harper says after that, call Zoom Drain or a local professional as soon as possible. But make sure that you're being patient.
It's picking up daily. It's picking up hourly. We're steadily having calls come in, which is bad for people, but, it is what it is. We'll get to them as quick as we can.
Yes, sorry. From a total call standpoint, we've seen a massive increase. We've probably doubled in tickets, but all plumbing companies, I'm sure, are doing their best to get to every job that they can and take care of the customers.
And ever wondered why you lost access to your hot water before the cold water? Well, it's because those hot water pipes tend to freeze first. Turns out water freezes more rapidly from a heated state than when it's at room temperature. This also comes as the Department of Environmental Management is asking you to not drip your faucets once temperatures are above freezing. ADEM says water utilities across the state are struggling to keep up with the increased demand and leaks from frozen pipes. Officials also say that if you find a leak either inside or outside of your home, to shut off your water supply completely until the leaks are repaired. We're also on your side showing you how to protect your plants during the extreme cold weather. If you cannot bring them inside over the next few days, experts say you should pull the plant as close to the home as possible so it can get reflective heat. You can also use some kind of cloth such as a burlap or a bed sheet to cover plants and shield them from the frost.
One of the best things you can do for your plants is give it a really nice heavy watering around the roots to help insulate them. Getting any of that mulch, pine straw, maybe even extra soil to pull up around the roots to insulate them. That could be a prep that you only have to do one time. You don't have to repeat it. That way, as we fluctuate in temperatures, at least you know your root system is insulated, and then all you're worrying about is a potential frost cloth to cover up that foliage and that trunk.
And if you plan to use a tarp, remember that material is not as breathable for the plant, so you'll definitely want to remove it once it goes above 40 degrees. And in 30 seconds, we take you around the country where other states are also enduring Arctic temperatures, as well as talk about how much these storms are costing for cleanup efforts. We'll be right back.
Tracking showers across the area here on First Alert Weather Extra, Chief Meteorologist Wes Wyatt. It's all in liquid form right now. No freezing rain moving through, but I know it is cold. It's one of the coldest rainy nights we've certainly had out there, and the wet weather is going to continue to push on through to the north and east through the overnight hours. And it looks like by the time we get into the freezing range, this is going to be long gone. However, areas to the north, we still could see a lot of residual moisture where we still have some ice left over from earlier in the week, so we'll have to watch out there. But tomorrow it's going to start feeling colder. Highs only in the 30s, but tomorrow night's when that frigid Arctic air makes a return. And we have declared a First Alert Weather Day Saturday. You can see wind chills down into the 1 degree, 2 degrees there Saturday morning. Temperatures down into the teens. The high only in the 20s for most of us, so we will stay below freezing. Another hard freeze warning for our Saturday. And as we expect to prepare to see more of this cold, frigid air coming up this weekend, the rest of the country is also preparing for another winter storm. Millions of people are currently under winter weather advisories and winter storm alerts. And Fox's weather, their meteorologist Nick Koser actually has an update on what's happening in other portions of the country.
Walked around a little bit during lunch and people were slipping all over the place.
Another wild winter storm is on the move this week, now headed west, as bitter cold temperatures from coast to coast leave more than 60 million people under winter weather alerts.
Don't go out if you don't need to. It's honestly, truly not worth it.
Freezing rain and wind pelting the Pacific Northwest and knocking out power to more than 85,000 homes and businesses in Oregon. Streets turned into ice skating rinks, along with downed trees and snapped power lines, creating dangerous travel conditions. The roads sending drivers sliding, with a 50-mile stretch from Portland to the Cascades closed. Authorities are warning it's best to stay indoors, with more and more injuries reported in ERs just from slipping on ice.
Actually lost count. Since Sunday, we've had lots of sledding accidents, lots of falling on the ice, broken bones, broken shoulders, clavicles, head injuries, lacerations on the face, lots of bumps and bruises.
Those brutal conditions already linked to more than 30 deaths nationwide, as the South also sees some rare snow and a deep freeze sets in up north. In places like Buffalo, they're expecting even more snow on top of the 3+ feet already covering the ground. The Arctic weather wreaking havoc on weather lines and pipes along the East Coast.
With water sitting in the line, once that cold water freezes, it expands, breaks the pipe.
But there is relief in sight as more moderate temperatures are expected next week. In Cleveland, I'm Nick Koser, Fox Weather.
And just how much is this extreme winter cold costing you? NOAA estimates that the overall damage and cost of a winter storm from last February cost about $1.8 billion. And a cold snap that knocked out power to customers from Texas to Maine in December 2022 cost about $8.7 billion. And of course, as one economist says, there can be individual household costs for this extreme cold as well. Well, still ahead on First Alert Weather Extra, an update on the latest drought monitor and a peek ahead to a much warmer beyond the 7-day. We'll be right back.
Well, it's Thursday. That means we have a new drought monitor. Let's check in with Matt for an update.
It's Thursday. That means we have a new update on the drought monitor. Just to give you an update that the drought monitor looks at the rainfall before Tuesday morning, so it doesn't take into account on the past couple of days, and we still have drought, but we're seeing some improvement. Let's show you that across the southeast. Still looking at an extreme drought across Louisiana, into Mississippi and southwestern Tennessee, but we will zoom on into parts of Alabama and still dealing with severe drought from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham. A little bit of that extreme drought in red right along in north of west of Gadsden, and drier or less drought as you go farther south and east, where it's just abnormally dry as you get towards the Montgomery area. So where does this compare from last week? Well, last week we saw about 5% of the state in extreme drought. That is lowered to 3%, so that is some improvement. In orange, severe drought at 41% last week. That's actually lowered to 33%, so that is some improvement there as well. And then that moderate drought, last week it was at 70% of the state under that, and now that has been dropped to 64%. So hey, we'll take what we can get. And of course, for January, we normally record about 5 inches of rainfall. Some of our wettest months actually occur as we go into the spring. So March is technically our wettest month of the year. So hopefully we can knock this drought out over the next week or two. But here's a look at those average rainfall totals for January in Tuscaloosa and Anniston, just a little bit below 5 inches. And so far, Birmingham's picked up almost 3 inches of rainfall, 3.5 in Tuscaloosa, and almost 4.5 inches of rain in Anniston. So Anniston's almost has seen their rainfall for the month, and we're still got another week or two to go. And the good news for that rain is next week it's looking kind of wet. You see those red colors out towards Texas, Houston, 5 inches over the next 7 days. The Weather Prediction Center is showing lots of moisture developing across the deep south, and we may end up with several inches of rainfall. Perhaps, of course, a lot can change between now and next week, but it looks like next week could end up warm and wet. So no matter where you go, make sure you download the WBRC First Alert Weather app. You can track the rain through there. It even has a cool feature where you can look at the future radar to get an idea if it's going to rain in your area over the next several hours.
Matt, and you can also share those pictures. We've been receiving several of those on the First Alert Weather app. Joe sharing this. She captioned there, trying to get to the bread. The ducks plowing through the ice, but because we did have some of those single-digit temperatures out there over the past couple of days and more frigid air moving in, just a reminder, if you do see ice-covered water there, it is not thick enough to walk on. No, do not attempt it. Do not attempt it. Kevin sharing those clouds moving in today across our area. This was from McCalla. Alan sharing that earlier today as the clouds moved in. Now we have the showers moving in, but I want to show Kimberly Hallman shared this, Hallman from Jasper, and notice still seeing some of that ice and some of that leftover sleet around from earlier this week, and that's the concern to the north. We still could see some of those trouble spots there later on tonight. We've got showers moving in. A lot of this is going to move out before the temperatures drop below freezing in those northern areas tomorrow morning. This is all rain, not frozen rain. Notice we're well above freezing at this time. In fact, Jasper at 37 degrees. Centerville, we're at 49, 46, and Clanton 49 right now at Rockford. But the showers continue through midnight. We'll get a lot of this out of here by early morning. Notice 2 a.m. Rain's gone and temperatures still above freezing for a lot of us. We'll have several hours there with the temperatures above freezing with no rain. So that's a good thing. But to the north, there still could be enough residual moisture. We need to watch it as those temperatures, you can see by 6 a.m. dropping into the 20s. So we'll see those readings there taking a tumble. Places like Center around 29 at 6 a.m. Just be careful and be alert for patchy black ice early tomorrow morning to the far north. By lunchtime, we're above freezing, still dry, but then that Arctic front is on the way. Those temperatures take the big tumble tomorrow night, and there could be some patchy areas where we have snow flurries as that frigid air settles in. The big drop in temperatures by early Saturday, lows down into the teens, and we'll see highs only in the 20s. But the weather pattern flips around next week. We have several rounds of rain on the way, as Matt mentioned. We're going to see a possibility where we could see over 2 inches of rain at least across parts of the region between next Tuesday and next Saturday. It won't be a steady rain for several days in a row, but we'll see those periods of showers that will be timing out. We could actually have a few thunderstorms by next Thursday. Look at that, 67 degrees. We see quite the warm up there later on next week. But again, this weekend, a first alert weather day for Saturday for another hard freeze, single-digit wind chills. Wind chill may actually go below zero in those areas to the north. But as we talk a little bit more about late next week, let's head to meteorologist Lauren Linehan and check out the first alert weather calendar. And it looks like next week, every day, there's something that we could be tracking.
Yeah, Wes, we have got a lot going on here on the first alert weather calendar. You can see we got a very wet and warm pattern that's going to be in place as we look at those temperatures. January 26th through February 1st, favoring an above average temperature pattern across much of the U.S. And so what does that translate to? Well, you see low temperatures possibly only being in the 40s and 50s. Our average low this time of the year is 35 degrees, so running well above average. And then as far as high temperatures, possibly next week, we were mentioning getting into the 60s. And then the week after that, as we wrap up January and head into February, possibly highs in the 50s, which is a little bit more seasonable. But generally, we're not seeing any more Arctic blasts in the forecast. We just have to get past this weekend first. Now, in true El Nino form, it is showcasing that 8 to 14 days from now, that January 26th through February 1st, 2nd time period, above average precipitation. So let's check it out here on the Futurecast. And this is showing us not just that potential for precipitation, but also the flow in the middle levels of the atmosphere. So here we are next Friday. This is January 26th, showing some southwest flow. Anytime you see southwest flow in the atmosphere, that's pulling moisture off of the Gulf of Mexico. And so oftentimes, if you've got southwest flow through much of the atmosphere, that can mean a lot of moisture that can come down. So we're expecting a wet pattern going possibly into next weekend. We're not just talking Saturday, but there's the potential there could be some rain around next Sunday. So as we wrap up the month, get into the 29th, 30th, 31st, that's that Monday through Wednesday, possibly getting a little bit drier, but maybe seeing another system coming in on the last day of the month, bringing some wet weather. And then possibly as we get into February, still could be seeing the potential for some wet weather in the forecast. But we'll have a final look at Weather Extra right after the break.
Well, look at this large icicle in this photo here. That was from Winston County there, Double
There you go.
Springs. Abby Laney sharing this. I thought at a minute I was like, is this Game of Thrones? What am I looking at here? But yeah, be careful with those. But a lot of wild pictures, you know, with all the cold weather. We're going to talk more about the forecast tonight, first at 9.
And don't mess with Abby, apparently.